Happiness is one of the most enigmatic words in the English language. It floats through our conversations, dominates our social media feeds, and weaves itself into the very fabric of our dreams. Yet nobody seems to have a clear grasp of what it truly means. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself what happiness really is? I mean, really sat down and wrestled with the question, do you know what it takes to ignite that spark of joy in your own life? To feel that sense of lightness or purpose that we all seem to crave? When you start to ponder it, happiness feels like such a simple concept. Everyone has a vague idea, a fleeting image of a warm moment, a perfect day, or a life that feels just right. But the more you try to pin it down, the more it slips away, becoming this complex, almost impossible thing to define. As Alan Watts once put it, trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. Perhaps happiness works the same way. The harder you try to capture its essence, to hold it still and examine it, the more it seems to evade you, like an electron in an atom, where you can only guess its position, never truly know it. These days, it feels like so many people are caught in this relentless cycle, this exhausting spiral of chasing happiness as if it is some kind of prize you earn by hitting all the right milestones in life. You know the drill. Land the dream job, buy the perfect house, find the ideal partner, or maybe even rack up a massive following online. But is that really what happiness is? A checklist you complete, a shiny trophy you display for the world to see? If you were to ask 10 different people what happiness means to them, you would probably get 10 completely different answers, each one shaped by their own experiences, desires, and dreams. Some will tell you it is all about money, that if they could just make enough to never worry about bills again, they would be happy. Others will talk about traveling the world, seeing new places, soaking in new cultures. Some will insist that finding a relationship, a soulmate, is the key to unlocking joy. And yes, there are those who genuinely believe that hitting a certain number of Instagram followers will finally deliver that cosmic notification from the universe saying, "Congratulations, you have unlocked happiness." But here is the thing, having a lot of money just makes you wealthy. It might take the edge off certain stresses, like paying the rent or buying groceries, but it does not automatically mean your heart feels full or your life feels meaningful. Traveling the world means you get to see incredible places, but it is not a guaranteed ticket to fulfillment. Relationships are wonderful, but having a partner does not mean you are suddenly complete or free from loneliness. And thousands of followers? That just means you are popular on the internet, not that your life has purpose when you put the phone down and face the quiet of your own thoughts. Pursuing happiness is like trying to cradle fine grains of sand in your palm. The tighter you grasp, the more swiftly they spill through your fingers, leaving you with less than you started. As the writer Anais Nin said, "We do not see things as they are, we see them as we are." Perhaps happiness is not something we chase or capture, but a reflection of how we choose to see and live in the world, found only when we release our grip on it. When you ask people what it means to be happy, most of them stumble over their words. They might give you a blank stare or toss out some vague cliche about feeling good or living your best life. Even the greatest philosophers, the ones who spent their lives dissecting the human condition, could not agree on what happiness is. Aristotle, for instance, had this concept called eudaimonia, which we often translate as happiness, but is really more about flourishing, about living a life of virtue and purpose. He believed it is not about chasing fleeting moments of joy, but about who you become through your actions over time. As he put it, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. For Aristotle, happiness is a long game, a process of building a life that aligns with your highest potential and contributes to the world around you. Then you have Epicurus, who took a completely different approach. He believed happiness is about pleasure and the absence of pain, but not in the way we might think of indulgence today. For him, it was about living simply, enjoying modest pleasures like good food, good friends, and a life free from drama. He once said, "Of all the means to ensure happiness throughout the whole life, by far the most important is the acquisition of friends." That is it. Just keep it simple. Surround yourself with people you trust, and savor the little things, like a warm meal or a quiet evening. But then you have Schopenhauer, the ultimate pessimist, who looked at life and said, "Life is a business that does not cover the costs." For him, happiness was rare, almost a mirage, and the best you could hope for was to avoid being in complete misery most of the time. The Buddha, on the other hand, saw desire itself as the root of all suffering. He taught that true peace comes from letting go of attachments, from shedding the ego, and all the cravings that keep us tethered to pain. Peace comes from within, he said, do not seek it without. But then, Ayn Rand comes along with a completely opposite view, arguing that happiness is about embracing your desires, pursuing your rational self-interest, and building a life around your own values. She wrote that happiness is that state of consciousness which proceeds from the achievement of one's values. For her, the ego is not something to let go of, it is something to celebrate, to fuel your ambitions, and create a legacy that is uniquely yours. It is striking how even the greatest minds in history could not agree on what happiness is. Some tell you to strive for growth and purpose. Others say to lean into simplicity and pleasure. Some want you to find meaning in the chaos of life, while others urge you to build an empire of self-interest. The Buddha might tell you to delete your social media accounts and detach from the noise. But let us be real, doing that would probably make a lot of people feel more lost than liberated. The older I get, the more I am convinced there is no universal recipe for happiness. No magic formula where you plug in X, Y, and Z and walk away with a dopamine badge and a serotonin trophy. Happiness is deeply personal, and it shifts depending on who you are and where you are in your life. What makes your heart sing at 20 might feel hollow by the time you hit 40. What brings you joy in one season of life might leave you cold in another. Happiness is a bit like an orgasm. You pour your heart, mind, and even your body into chasing it, working hard to reach that peak. Yet when it arrives, it is only a fleeting moment, intense and electric, but gone before you can hold on to it. That brief, vivid spark is what makes it so powerful, so addictive, and maybe that is why we keep chasing it, even when it feels so hard to grasp. And just like an orgasm, maybe that is why so many people are faking it on Instagram, projecting a version of that peak to the world, even if they have not quite reached it themselves. Speaking of Instagram, I genuinely believe that people who are truly content do not feel the need to broadcast their joy to the world. Those who are constantly posting about their perfect lives, their curated vacations, their flawless, strong relationships, more often than not, it feels like insecurity wearing a mask. It is a performance, a way to convince others, and maybe even themselves, that they have cracked the code to happiness. But when you are really at peace, when you are truly fulfilled, you do not need to prove it to anyone. You are too busy living it, soaking in the moments that matter, without worrying about how they look to an audience. As C.S. Lewis wrote, "Joy is the serious business of heaven." Real joy does not need a filter or a caption. It is just there, quiet and steady, in the way you move through your days. But here is a question that keeps nagging at me. Who decided that we need to be happy all the time? Who made happiness the ultimate goal of life? Maybe that is where we have gone wrong, where we have gotten ourselves tangled up in this endless pursuit. The smarter you are, the less happy you might seem, because you are always seeing problems on the horizon, wrestling with questions that most people do not even notice. Maybe a fulfilling life is not about being happy every moment of every day. Maybe it is about finding purpose, about building resilience, about navigating the chaos of life with a little bit of grace. I have come to terms with the idea that happiness is not the most important thing in my life. Instead of chasing it like some elusive prize, maybe it is wiser to focus on avoiding the things that make me unhappy. If I can do less of what drags me down, whether it is toxic relationships, pointless stress, or the endless scroll through social media, then by default, I will feel a little more okay. Not the kind of happy where I am jumping for joy, but calm, balanced, and less caught up in the chaos. For me, that is enough. This idea aligns with something from behavioral psychology called subtractive well-being. Instead of piling on more goals, more stuff, more expectations, you focus on removing the things that weigh you down. It is not the most glamorous approach, but it feels sustainable, like something you can actually live with over the long haul. As the poet Rainer Maria Rilke wrote in Letters to a Young Poet, perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses who are only waiting to see us act, just once, with beauty and courage. Maybe the dragon of unhappiness is not something we need to slay, but something we can learn to sidestep, to understand, by making small, intentional choices that bring us closer to peace. When you think about it, sometimes the reason we feel unhappy might be because the questions we ask ourselves are just too vague, too slippery. Take the question, are you happy? It sounds so simple, so innocent, but when you really unpack it, what does it even mean? Happy in what sense? Happy in this exact moment? Happy with my job, my relationships, my breakfast, my shoes? The more I think about it, the more it feels like the question itself is designed to trip us up, to make us feel like we are falling short of some impossible standard. This is what some call semantic overload, where a word like happiness carries so many meanings that it becomes almost impossible to pin down or measure. That kind of ambiguity can create anxiety, because there is no clear benchmark to aim for, no way to know if you are doing it right. As Ludwig Wittgenstein put it, the limits of my language mean the limits of my world. If we cannot even define happiness clearly, how are we supposed to know if we have found it? The question, are you happy, might seem harmless on the surface, but it often pulls us into a spiral of comparison and judgment, measuring our lives against some vague, unattainable ideal that does not even exist. What if, instead of obsessing over that question, we focused on the small, tangible things that ground us? A quiet moment with a warm cup of coffee in the morning, a good meal shared with someone you love, where the conversation flows easily. A video game that pulls you in for hours, letting you escape into another world. These moments are not the kind of grand, Instagram-worthy highlights we are taught to chase, but they are real, and they anchor us in a way that feels true. Maybe that is where the secret lies, not in chasing some big, shiny destination called happiness, but in savoring the small, imperfect moments that make life feel worth living. So maybe it is time we let go of the idea of happiness as this lofty, mythical trophy we are supposed to chase forever. Maybe it is not about curating a perfect life for the world to see, or proving to everyone that we have made it. But maybe it is about doing less of what makes us miserable, about being honest with ourselves about what is really going on beneath the surface, not just what we project to strangers at parties or post online. As Mary Oliver asked in her poem The Summer Day, tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Maybe happiness is not about finding the perfect answer to that question, but about living it, embracing the messy, imperfect, complicated reality of the life we actually have. If we can make peace with that, if we can stop chasing illusions and focus on living better in the here and now, that might just be the closest thing to happiness any of us can ever hope to find.